So to commence, I'm going to just quickly open up our 775 and just to give you some insight on how this quote has been set up. So our client name, just bear in mind, is if there is no direct mapping between Cloud Quote and BPO based on the account code, customer name, or VAT number, there will be a generic placeholder used for this specific client. So CB Technologies does not exist on the BPO side, and I will show you on the quote when we move to the BPO side of things. You'll see how the placeholder populates for the client name. Under my option details for this specific quote, I have our various part codes that I've mapped in advance. So I've got part number for this Task Alpha refurb. Likewise with the accessories, all this is configured on the Cloud Quote side. I've also added a custom product with some custom accessories and a custom service product. There is no part number ABC0012 on the BPO. So that part will also just be assigned a generic placeholder, which then the sales administrators can go and edit on the BPO side of things. So from here, we obviously have our various statuses, and the fundamental of this integration is that the quote is accepted on the Cloud Quote side, and that creates a new quote in BPO where the generic placeholders can be amended before converting to a sales order. So from here, I am just simply going to go and accept this quote for the customer, marked as accepted, and we can then proceed to review back to our dashboard. Okay, perfect. So as I mentioned earlier, we have the various quote statuses on the Nucleus side. We had our rejected quote, and as you can see, our rejected status then populates with the relevant quote description, being the quote reference on the Cloud Quote side. Likewise with our CQ draft and our CQ active quotes. They also assign the various status as assigned in the Cloud Quote, on the Cloud Quote side of things. And as mentioned before, the Cloud Quote accepted quote has now posted through, being our 775. So as you can see, our CB Technologies did not pull through. We didn't have a direct mapping between the two systems. So if I'm just going to go and quickly edit this quote, and you can have a look on the Nucleus side here, we can then proceed to select the various customer that this quote was intended to. So let's say that this customer is merely just a lead on the Cloud Quote side, and we haven't captured the customer information on Nucleus or BPO. We will then proceed to add the customer information under the master file record under our sales module and proceed to link that customer to this quote. So for today's purposes, I am just going to select customer 2 and allocate the relevant contact information. Now, as discussed, I did populate with our generic custom products that we had here. As you can see, I did not assign it a part code on my custom accessory and my custom service, as well as our custom master product then populates, all with the quote item type other. So this allows the sales administration team to just access the item type, and they can then go and populate that line item with the respective item code for that certain custom product. Just a note is that we won't be able to convert to sales order if there is an other quote item type. So it's just a fail safe to ensure that we're obviously capturing all the relevant information on the BPO side. So from there, we've now captured all of our items, changed the item types from other, and populated our unit prices. These item prices pull directly from Cloud Quote. So the commercial details you set up on the Cloud Quote side then will post the pricing through to BPO, and the unit cost will then pull according to what is configured on the BPO side. So as you can see, our main warehouse having 145 Rand unit cost for this specific part code, it then reflects accordingly. Apologies about that. I obviously missed that. So our contact, I don't have a contact name in there. Apologies, guys. Anyway, so from there, our sales admin team have confirmed that the details are correct. They're happy with the pricing as per what's being pulled through on Cloud Quote. They've removed all the generic placeholders on the quote. they can proceed to click Save. Following that, the process from cloud quote to BPO has been complete, and the rest of the team can proceed to go print the quote. If you're wanting to use the BPO templates, if you're wanting to use the cloud quote template, that's already been printed on the cloud quote side and sent to the customer. The customer then confirms they've accepted, you post the new quote to BPO, and we can then proceed to convert to a sales order. So that concludes the fundamental process of the integration. Pat, I'm not too sure if you want me to necessarily cover anything else, but from our side, that is the fundamentals of it all. And well, the end result being our quote there, 7775.
Yeah, so just jumping in here. So guys, again, as we just per the introduction, the idea here is just creating a seamless flow. So rather than creating a manual step or process with the documents, the sales the deal pack or the sign-off sheet or whatever it is that you refer to in cloud quotes, creating that and then having your administrator, your BPO administrator, capture that in BPO. We're effectively doing that directly through the integration itself. I think, I mean, it seems so seamless and so simple, and that's because of the way that the guys have set this up. I mean, are there specifically any questions immediately? I think maybe if we can probably pose one or two of those. Alternatively, Connor, maybe you can go in and sort of create a quote from scratch again and just recreate and bring that in so that we can see that in as an additional potential while we wait for any queries coming through.
Okay, perfect, Pat. I will proceed to share my cloud quote screen again, and then I'll just load a quote from scratch just for everyone's reference. So we've navigated back to our cloud quote screen. At our top left, we've got our new quote. So under here is our client name. This is where obviously our mapping would take part or take place. So I've got customer 2 loaded on my Nucleus/BPO database. So I'm going to use that customer just so that I can also demo how it does directly map across. From there, we can then proceed to go on the option route or create our option. I'm going to follow the same part codes just so that we can obviously show the mapping and how that works. And I'm going to add a custom product for this specific option. So I've got our custom product. I'm going to name it our master product. Our part number being, and then our base price as per what the custom product is. From there, you can add an accessory for this custom product, accessory 1, and we'll take the base price being 100 Rand. From there, the team can then go or the sales rep can then go and save their quote, populate it in draft on the cloud quote side, and then likewise, it will populate in the draft status on BPO. We can then follow the process as per the cloud quote side of things, and we can then go and proceed to accept our quote. Likewise, if you want to mark it as active, you can mark it as active and then proceed to accept it. For today's purposes, I am just going to straight accept this quote here. Following my acceptance, we can then navigate back to the Nucleus side. And you can see our quote 777 has now populated with our customer name being mapped. And if we go have a look at that, our custom product once again falls under the OTHR, the other quote item type, where the sales administrators can then go and edit and continue with the quote process.
And again, in this particular example, I mean, quite a basic example with 2 products and accessories, but obviously, as we know, certain quotes can be quite lengthy, and that manual process of having to recreate and bring those in can be quite laborious. So this is done in a matter of seconds, really, and then ensuring that the necessary maps have taken place if they haven't. As Connor referred to there, the fail-safe being the other part code, so that we ensure that is mapped before we go ahead and create the actual sales order itself.
I'm just having a look at the questions on the side here and just fielding
Yeah.
through some,
Yeah,
and
perfect.
then I'll get back to him.
So the first being from Angelo there, doing a quote in BPO. The invoice usually needs to be to the bank for discounting. So once we create the sales order, though, maybe just the flow that's going to occur. I mean, the invoicing only happens when you create within BPO, you're creating what do you guys refer to that as again?
That'll be so we'll go from our quote to our sales order, and then we create a new deal on the BPO side, which we then proceed to issue the parts out and subsequently invoice the client.
Okay, and then the second part of that question, will we be able to change the client name once we accept the quote? So I guess the thinking here being that we're pushing through the client detail as being the actual end clients, but in this case, they're invoicing the bank as opposed to the clients because it's a finance deal. Is that?
Yeah, so once the quote's been accepted on BPO, we can't go proceed to change the client name. Hence why we did use the new status, which allows the edit option here. If I go back to any of the other statuses, you'll see that we've only provided with view access to these type of quotes. As obviously those are still drafts on the cloud quote side, we don't want to edit them on BPO, and then the data doesn't align between the two systems. So on the new status, we'll proceed to edit our relevant quote. Provided that we've now got a different customer, we can then edit our customer on the quote side. Likewise, if we've already accepted it and moved on to a order status, onto a sales order, as you can see, we've got our regular BPO rules. And do you wish to still generate? We will select yes. And even still on the sales order side, there is still the edit option where if, let's say, the bank is now the finance house, and you are needing to raise the invoice against the finance house, we can then select the customer name being our end user customer and our billing customer being the finance house that we are going to send the invoice to. So there is still that stage in the process where you can still input your banks and your finance houses who are financing these specific deals.
Yeah, so on that note, obviously this is sort of going into BPO functionality, but I would imagine it's the same sort of premise is you've got invoice. So thank you, Annabelle, for providing your inputs. And then Anna Marie, invoice to the bank must specify invoicing party as the bank, and then there's a ship to the customer. So that effectively being the customer that we're providing the quote to. And then you're invoicing, you're invoicing the bank, but there's a shipping address or a shipping contact. I mean, that's likely already in there, I would imagine.
Yes, Pat. So on our sales order details, we obviously have our shipping customer and our billing customer. We've also got our billing address and our shipping address linked to the various sales order, according to what's loaded against the client record on BPO.
Perfect. So Max, no, it doesn't require premium access. What this will entail though, guys, we've foregone any sort of upfront once-off costs in terms of setting this up for our clients. But there is an integration module cost, a minimal charge in which we effectively support the API between Cloud Quotes and BPO. And in terms of those costs, just to give you a bit of an overview, but what I'll do is I'll respond to all the attendees with firstly the recording link, and then I'll also give an indication of what those costs are going to be. But effectively, we've broken it up based on the size of our clients specifically. Because obviously the more users that you have, the more queries on the API, the busier that's going to be. But we're looking at, sort of just to give you guys an idea, a micro Cloud Quotes integration module license, micro being 1 to 5 users, is 500 Rand per month. That would be a 500 Rand charge from Cloud Quotes side and a 500 Rand charge from CO3 Nucleus' side. And then small is 5 to 10 users, 750, mediums 10 to 20 at 1,000 a month, and then the large being the biggest that we have is 20 plus users at 1,500 a month. But effectively, what we're going to be looking at doing here as well, when I send through those responses or via mail, if you can give us an indication, what Marius and I have agreed to do is effectively provide this integration module. If you guys give us a go ahead on this now, we will provide September, October, November, December, and January at no charge, and only start billing for this in February. What that'll allow us to do is also get some feedback from you guys in terms of other nice to haves within the integration. We can get a bit of an idea of other elements that you feel might be lacking in the basic integration part of things, or a couple of nice to haves. If we feel the same as what we do within Cloud Quotes and CO3, if we feel that there's benefit to the collective, we'll look at adding that at no cost. But if there is specific elements that you're wanting to change based on your processes within your business, we would have to then quote based on scope of work. So what you're trying to achieve, we can then provide a costing on that. But the idea with this is that we've foregone that upfront cost and really just going to carry this across as a monthly integration module license to each of our clients.
Sorry to pause you there, Pat.
Yes.
I've just got a couple of questions from Carl and Keegan regarding the BPO version. So the later versions of BPO are compatible with our REST API. So that is the minimum requirement for this solution. So yes, to answer that question, you can be on BPO v2, provided that it is one of the later versions. So Keegan, in your example, 25014 will be compatible with this integration. But if you are on, let's say, 232401, then we'll need to conduct a minor upgrade to get you up to the later versions of v2.
Okay, just working down that list there. Craig, one note, the ETA on specific items and the RAE for imported goods quoted. Again, I would imagine that's specifically Craig, are you referring to sort of, are you providing for, are we saying the rate of exchange that we quoted within Cloud Quotes, or are you referring to the actual costings of those items within BPO? I think maybe just some clarity there. Keegan, just to answer, so working down here, can Cloud Quote automatically generate new renewal quotes for recurring services or contracts using preset rules or pricing terms? No, so we're not creating automatic quotes or renewal quotes out of the system. A quote would have to be created by a user within Cloud Quotes and choose specific products and services. Okay, so Craig referring to the actual rate of exchange within Cloud Quote itself, and then the ETA, I'm assuming we're referring to a custom field of sorts. So we're giving the clients an indication of that. So right now within the basic integration, we haven't allowed for custom field elements to pull through directly. We're specifically allowing for the actual hardware components and the costing of those, and obviously the client detail to pull through, but not the custom fields in this specific integration. So in that case, where we would likely create an ETA for the client from a quoting perspective is in a custom field. The rate of exchange side of things is probably a good query. That's something we haven't spoken about with the BPO guys. But again, the costing itself would be created within BPO, and then we would match that against the actual part numbers themselves. Although I think, Craig, if you don't mind, we'll come back to you on that. I want to have a chat with the guys as well outside of this particular forum, and we'll just give you some clarity on that. Maybe we can discuss this with you individually.
Pat, do you mind? I'm sorry, Justin. Yeah, do you mind if I just jump in for 2 seconds on that one?
Yeah, go for it.
Currently, how we've currently configured your ROE and currencies, it's based off the customer record and the ROE in the system at the time, but we can modify this if required at a later stage. Okay.
You're saying that's the exchange rate that's in BPO?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
we've
the
used,
customer-
so I fetch their base CC is what comes
Okay,
through,
the customer
and then I
base.
use
Okay.
the rate of exchange and I get the currency from the customer record. Obviously, a customer record can only have one currency
Okay.
from the BPO side.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, looking at, and then we've got Max asking about a price override.
Yeah, Pat, I think I can answer that one there. Is if we're changing the prices on the cloud quote side, so let's say we've accepted a quote on cloud quote and we now need to, or it's an active quote, and we need to override the pricing for those items, provided that the quote has not been converted to a sales order on Nucleus. All changes made in cloud quote will post to the quote on BPO. So that is the fail-safe, is once it's been converted to a sales order, no other changes from cloud quote will be applicable.
Max, is that okay? Vili, would we now be able to auto-populate agreements on cloud quote? In other words, your rental agreements and your SLAs, etc. I'm assuming you're referring to, okay, so the client's entries themselves. Vili, that will likely be part of the more advanced integration, because what we would then look at doing is ingesting part of the client data from BPO into cloud quotes, and you're creating a quote, bringing in the client data from BPO, and we generate the quote, we accept the quote, and then you can continue with creating the documents. Because we've got the client data from BPO, we can then populate with those fields, yes, but that would be part of the advanced integration, not this specific integration. Okay, well, guys, that pretty much concludes it. So what I will do is I will share the Q&A tab. Thank you very much. Looking at the chat specifically. Paul, so just looking at some of these, Paul, I'll respond to you separately regarding the reporting side. I'm assuming you're BPO clients and not necessarily utilizing cloud quotes, so we can engage separately. We can give you a bit more of an indication of how that would work. Line items be edited after they've been saved. Yes, Keegan, I mean, pretty much as what Justin said there, as long as it hasn't been converted to a sales order yet, at which point that is then locked. And the only way to then change would be to create, a new quote with a new accepted quote, and then create a sales order from there. So as long as the sales order hasn't actually been processed. Same thing here with Yunair regarding recurring quotes. And then is cloud quote compatible with BPO version 2.5? I think that was alluding to what Connor said just now. Guys, Connor, Justin, I'm assuming, I'm not sure on the versions.
You can answer on the Q&A.
Okay. Well, we'll respond on specifics on those and provide feedback. But if there aren't any other queries specifically on the chats, just reach out specifically when I send through the responses on the mails as well. Feel free to reach out. As I mentioned, I know that a few of you are BPO specific clients and others are cloud quote specific, but there is an overlap. If you're wanting to learn more about either solution, just reach out and we will arrange the necessaries with the respective account managers. So with that, that concludes the webinar, guys. So I'll send through more information, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Team CO3, for assisting, And we look forward to engaging with all of you a bit more and getting this set up.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks, everyone.
So turn on my camera there, Marius. So they're just looking at, yeah, so Billy, I am going to send through a copy of the recording. I'll also send through the pricing that I spoke of as well. And we can engage further from there. But as we mentioned, as guys are just jumping off, effectively we're looking at providing 4 months at no charge, and start billing from February. So you just need to give us an indication of whether you want access to that. But yes, look forward to engaging further. Thank you, guys.